How do I trust that I give this data to companies and we can integrate AI? How can we leverage the Gen AI part for my business?
It becomes annoying that, oh, please rate us, please rate us.
People have accepted that I'm talking to a bot. It's not that I need to speak to a human.
Governments today are creating their own AI.
And I want to keep the costs low because this is seasonal business.
Hiring is a lot of efforts go into hiring, right?
Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of this series where we are discussing technology and AI with Pace Wisdom. My name is Azan. I'm one of the co-founders at Pace Wisdom and I head the global delivery. You know what? The boardrooms are asking CEOs, what are you doing in AI? Right? There's a funding winter going on, but still companies who are investing in AI, especially Gen AI, are on the lookout. So VCs, angel funds are investing, doubling their investments down on new ideas and adoption of AI in different businesses. So that's going to be the topic today that we want to discuss of how businesses can use Gen AI and look out for an ROI from there. And today to discuss about this, I have my friend Atul from Buckle Consult UAE. Welcome Atul, welcome once again.
Hi Azan, this is I'm loving that this is becoming a regular thing, and and today's topic is of course something very close to my heart, and I think this is going to be a long recording.
So, everyone is talking about AI. We spoke about how AI in healthcare, it's important. Then we talked about the foundational concept, like how data engineering is required to do AI in one of the episodes. But people would want to know where this AI is going to help, or what is that is going to impact businesses, right? So probably in today's episode, I'm expecting that we would probably look at one or two examples, complexities, and how do we decide on choosing the right AI solution. So whole thing is, how do I solutionize now with AI? So if AI was not there, what could have been the solution? And if Gen AI is there, what the solution could be now using this service? And do we have our own Gen AI, or do we take something from OpenAI? So there are a lot of questions. So I would like to understand from a perspective of any business owner, how do I assess that I should use Gen AI, or where can I use Gen AI in my business?
So, I think it's everyone knows that this is like the hottest topic in a couple of decades that's come up, right? And businesses, and because it's where hype has reached the tech side, and everybody can have a piece of it today by just going on to chat.openai and just typing something just like you would search on any other website, right? So it's so very close to the common person, and that really pushes even businesses to think that how are we going to leverage this, and how can this help us optimize and improve ourselves before the competition does it, and B, before I lose my employees who want to go for a role that is more sparkly and more AI and tech driven, right? So there are many aspects to look at this, but today I would still say that we are in this starting phase of AI becoming almost. The performance is slowly. It's not slowly improving, but the performance is improving gradually, and people are considering adoption. But businesses should look at a couple of things. One is the right use case for it. Of course, that goes without saying that use case is important. But the right use case. So a lot of people actually ask me that, when you talk to businesses and then you work with them, how do you make sure the costs are down for Gen AI today, right? So today, other than regular server setup and all of your cloud compute costs, there is AI processing cost as well, right? And that's tokenized. So that's not that's something that like your scaling architecture scales with your content as well, and it necessarily may not be scaling the same way as your server processing may scale, right? There is possibility for it to scale a lot more also. So today businesses should, in my opinion, see where they can use it to minimize human intervention for their workforce. So if there's
Or
a
make
lot
them
of
more productive, maybe. So instead of,
so
it's not
productivity,
only that humans should be let out. So it's something like how a new invention can be brought in. Let's say
Correct.
when the era of mobile apps came in, so people were like, okay, now I don't have to carry a big laptop, right? I mean, I can do all the work in the small mobile. I can be on the go. I can do more work and become more productive. So
Yeah.
similarly, Gen AI should come in to increase the productivity so that
Right.
more work can be done and
Yeah.
automations can be done.
Today, that's the sweet spot where we can. I mean, businesses should actually be using AI for. So, for example, I mean, we may not notice it, but different people throughout their 8 or 9 or 5, 7 work day, right? There are certain tasks that actually need not take time, but depending on person to person, it may take time. Like writing up an email or analyzing a report or generating PPTs, stuff like that, right? I'm not saying that just because you use Gen AI doesn't mean you don't need to know how to do it, right? If you don't know how to do it, you won't be able to prompt Gen AI the right way to do it also, right? But using these tools can save you a lot more time in your workday where you can actually focus on other things. One is, I mean, it would greatly improve your work-life balance, right? That's something that everyone knows is
Save
something
time.
that people
Time
yeah,
is,
people struggle with, right?
yeah.
There are cases where you can save up to an hour a day, right? If you use it properly. Generating emails is the most common example. I think most of our common email providers, like if you're on G Suite or 365, they've already integrated, where, okay, summarize this into an email, or create a quick summary of this so I can send it out to a group or something like that, right?
It's also true about consuming
Yeah,
content, right? I mean, sometimes you get a huge RFP or you get a huge document that you need
yeah,
to understand, and
yeah.
it is like written in some kind of a language. I'm not
Cryptic
saying a different
language,
language, but a
little
lingo.
cryptic. Yeah,
Yeah, little
it's very
cryptic.
legalese. I would say
Yeah,
it's legalese, right?
yeah, yeah,
So actually, that's a very good point, because now, especially in bigger companies, right, where there's a lot of stakeholders and a lot of dotted line reporting and all of that, right? So you need to keep multiple people informed, right?
right.
And what happens is, one team gets it, somebody or a group of people in the team have the responsibility to figure it out and push the project or something forward. They read it, analyze it, then they have to go and they have to basically, vouch for it or talk about it to multiple different teams. That's another meeting again. Some people not available, right? All of that, right? So I think there's a lot of, I mean, time lost in scheduling a meeting and actually explaining something that it could very easily be summarized by Gen AI,
Yeah.
and quick pointers could be sent out to everyone before the meeting. And instead of having two 1 hour meetings, you could actually have a solid half an hour meeting where everyone is in check, right? And you can use it to find out things that you have not discussed with other people before you go into the meeting. For example, somebody new to the organization may not know that, okay, this is the process I need to follow. But if the organization has incorporated an assistant to all of their documents, all of their SOPs, and all of their operating docs, that could really help someone, like a new joiner, someone who's working fresh at a place, to speed up and start contributing much faster, right? So I think that these use cases are the today use cases, and businesses should be focusing on this period. Like, I don't think there's any question on whether they should focus on this or not.
So,
Later on, there are other customer facing use cases which really start becoming a bit more complicated. That's where you have to start figuring out how, whether you can extract the right ROI. For example, so today chatbots are super common right now, right? I think since 2015 till now, it's about
yeah,
9 years now.
yeah.
So over the last 9 years, now it's almost like I need to have one. Like, where is your?
And
It's
people
like what
also
a
have
website was
accepted that
20
I'm
years ago.
talking to a bot, right? I mean, people have accepted that I'm talking to a
Yeah,
bot. It's not that I need to speak to a human.
yeah,
It's emotionless. Yes, we understand that. But most of the times, we
yeah,
understand that if it is giving and serving my purpose, it is better and faster for me to get desired results. People are okay with that.
yeah. And I think today, since people are okay with that, businesses also, of course, are okay with that, because I mean, managing a whole customer service end to end, which is people heavy rather than tech heavy, is always a challenge, right? Yeah. So today it's common to have a bot as a customer service agent, right? But the thing is now replacing your existing bot with a new Gen AI bot, that's where things get a little tricky. So if you're a really big company where you get tens of thousands of requests a day, right? You'd be raking in big bills on your AI invoicing. Like it would go into, like, if you're using the new ChatGPT 4.0 APIs, for example. So on average, if you say the conversation is about 5 to 10 interactions between the bot and the user, I mean that could change depending on the business. That would be about 1 cent, sometimes 2 cents, right? So 2 cents into 10,000 is a couple $100, but the business needs to be in a state where bleeding that much is okay, regardless of what happens. So if it's a
I think
small,
on the
yeah.
ROI side we can get in, but what I wanted to understand is before we get into the ROI and all that, how does a business know that okay I should use Gen AI? Because you only see a lot of people's exposure today with Gen AI is, hey, there's a chat window, I write a prompt. First, I need to know what I need to get from the prompt and tell the Gen AI, because a lot of people are disappointed. Hey, it's not giving me the output that I need to get out. Or maybe they don't understand how a prompt can be engineered. Right. So that is by itself a challenge, and you would see that okay, the max it is that you take help from OpenAI or a Gemini or anything which is available today, run something, get an output, and maybe copy paste it somewhere, right?
So
So this
I
is
think
what people's mentality is. But
okay.
I know that there is beyond this that the Gen AI can do for businesses. So
So
how do I determine
businesses,
that?
okay. So then, in that case, businesses should actually really look at what industry they're in, right? Because depending on the level of regulation, it matters a lot, right? For, let's take one of the most regulated industries, of course, on the banking side, right? They have very strict rules about data residency. Data processing has to happen in-house, on-prem, a lot of that, right? Now, then it becomes a real question, because then their investment goes up a lot, right? And they also need to make sure that, see, because Gen AI is a black box, right? Even the leaders of, like, somebody asked Sundar Pichai that do we know, is there somebody checking what it's saying, what it's not saying? And his first response was, I mean, there is a big amount of black box architecture to this. So after you train it on, couple of thousands of, hundreds of thousands of terabytes, there is really not much you can do to exactly figure out what it will respond, right? So it's almost like a mini brain where you can't predict what the other person will say, right?
Yeah.
So almost like that, not exactly like that. You can't predict what it can say. Whereas the chatbots of maybe 5 years ago, right, or 3-4 years ago rather, that I mean, it's fully programmed, right? It's based on these intents have to have this output. These entities are recorded as ABC, something like that, right? But I mean, today you don't have that, because a lot of it is depending on the context about what information you provided. So highly regulated businesses will be wary, and rightfully so. There was an example where there was an airline provider, I think in Canada, and they have a policy that if you are flying for a grievance, for example, your relative or someone has passed away, you are eligible for a free flight, right? Now somebody happened to need to use this, and they tried to book it online. There was something they didn't understand with how to apply for it, and they asked the chatbot, which was promptly connected to a Gen AI agent, and it prompted him to book it and then sort of apply for a refund or something like
Refund.
that, right? And I think there were some terms about how you can, how much, what dates or something, right? So that information did not come across right, and the person could not get a refund, and they took the airline to court.
Okay.
Right? So now this is a whole legal battle which involving lawyers and PR and a lot of different things. So this is one of the examples where if you don't have the downside if something goes really bad, like you need to have some sort of risk appetite when it comes to the output here, right? It cannot be an industry where there cannot be a single mistake ever, right? When you respond back to your customer, I don't think those industries would be adopting it right now. And also, those industries are hierarchically quite vast also. So to go through, by the time they implement it, I think the next gen of AI will come out. So those
Right.
kind of those kind of businesses will sort of slightly struggle initially, but on the other hand, they can use it for. I mean, they would have internal apps and stuff like that, right? They could use it for improving customer experience there, like you would guiding through the UI, generating simple thank you messages, generating receipts, asking for feedback in innovative ways. It becomes annoying that, oh, please rate us, please rate us, please rate us. But if you have a different message every time, right? Maybe a message more related to the context, right? That could also help. A lot of notifications that goes on apps today are generative AI. Like you may have seen a lot of when your food delivery apps, they tell you, "Hi, knock knock,
Right.
are you there?
Right.
Hungry?" Right?
Right.
So those are good examples, because even if that goes wrong, the impact on the business is less, right? So that's something that I think businesses by default will be looking at that for sure, right? Even before ROI, right? Even if the ROI is there, if this goes wrong, then your calculations are all out of proportion, right?
So one is the area where we talk about the content generation, right? When
Yeah,
it says Gen AI, so
yeah.
it can be a text content, it can be image content, and now
Image.
we are talking music,
Yeah,
we're talking videos, and a
yeah,
number of things where your model is able to do that. And then we also have a little bit a logical output, something like a code, where you give
yeah.
a context of what you're coding, and then the Copilot or GitHub Copilot or anything of that sort which is available is helping you to code as well, right? It completes the function for you. Maybe you're writing a code and you say, I want to write a test case, or on top of it, it may be able to help you with that. So multiple businesses are using Gen AI already, right? So as a content generator, you would use it to write, let's say you've written an article on LinkedIn and now you want to get some hashtags out of it, or want to summarize or put a title. I've written something and I want a title about it. So these things, which is more creative work and sometimes takes too much of a time to think and come out with some things, you can get easy suggestions, right? Maybe for image generation, there are a lot of Gen AI today to generate a simple logo, a creative logo which talks about your brand, and you give an input of the prompt and it gives you output. So these are on the creative side, yes. And then the coding side, you have the code generators on image, and today video and audio and music production. You have various things that are coming on the Gen AI side, which is like mimicking the voice, AI
Yeah.
interface that talks to you and looks like a human and all that. So this is one way where things are happening. But core business operations, workflows, where do you think these people can say that, okay, this is all seems nice and good things. I have my own enterprise data. I have my data that cannot go out. Or how do I trust that I give this data to companies and and we can integrate AI? How can we leverage the Gen AI
Okay.
part for my business? I'm not into content generation. I'm not into marketing or writing some posts on LinkedIn. So how can
So,
my business
document
get?
creation, automation, detecting errors. This is something that can be done, right? Using Gen AI, right? Highlighting issues in documents. Like for example, you have an onboarding process, right? Through that onboarding process, there are multiple documents sort of uploaded by the user, right? So through your normal KYC process, right? So these could basically funnel into a Gen AI agent that creates your document based on all of the data uploaded, right? I mean, that would go back into your file, or if you have to submit to some sort of regulator, that makes it a lot easier. You don't have to get people to physically verify it, or you don't have to create multiple different forms where the customer goes to different links and then they check this, check that, if this, if that, all of those, right? So, all of those complexities internally, like document generation, workflows, those can be automated, right? A lot easier. So today, the once you have, for example, like when if you have a G Suite subscription, or a Microsoft 365 subscription, there is an option for you to, connect to like your private instance of, OpenAI, or through Azure, or even Gemini through Google Cloud, where they do tell you that it's on your private cloud, right? So there's a special instance spun up on your account for you, right? So it's sort of private there. But was like I mentioned, some industries still need it in-house, on premise, right? So for them, I don't think right now, with the costs of GPUs and training and data requirements, it would make sense to create their own AI, right? So I think most industries can use it. There are some particular industries like governments today. I mean, actually, that's a very good point. Governments today are creating their own AI, like the Abu Dhabi government, even the Indian government. They're looking at creating a localized version where they would basically buy GPUs, they would train, and they would expose it. So there is a possibility that in the future, for example, if the RBI says that okay, data cannot go out, you can use Gen AI, but it has to be, from this source. It could move on to that in the future, where there are regulations of what type of provider you can use, because that provider knows what kind of data they've used to train it, right? Like today, we OpenAI or Gemini, maybe the data came from YouTube, maybe it came from TikTok, maybe it came from Twitter, or definitely it probably came from all of these sources, right? So, but governments will take a different approach to it, and they control a lot more, of the data regulations as well. So that could change, and yeah. So this is the best way for most businesses to use it internally, like a non-customer facing operation, I would say, is for automation of documents, onboarding new people, new employees, new staff. That's going to be a very strong use case, because a lot of companies always want to, improve that, make it better, because in India there's a 3 month notice period, right? That's average, right? So after you serve 3 months, you're waiting for the customer to come, your co-worker to join, or your colleague to join. They join, and then they have basically a huge backlog of whatever has happened in the company, right, for such a long time. And
Yeah.
they need a buddy. Then the buddy goes on leave, they need another buddy, they have the different departments. So this could simplify a lot, right? Your agent could be the buddy for you, and it would basically work on all of your internal documentation processes, all of that. That's a very, very strong use case,
Right.
because you could, extract productivity much quicker from someone joining, and that'd be good for them also, right? I mean, how long would someone who's capable and who wants to work be ready to be on the sidelines and not, have their own contributions? So I think that's also a very strong use case.
Let's pick up one real customer use case, Atul. So I have come across a customer who is into the education sector. They're helping and training students to write better essays and improve their grammar and language, so that they can crack the admissions in one of the top universities across the world. They already have a portal where students can submit the essays or whatever the documents that they have, and then there is a bunch of experts on the language who read these essays, and they provide comments on what can be changed, right? For example, hey, this you have used an active voice here, this should be a passive voice, the grammar could have been changed here, this tone doesn't sound good, it can be much more pleasing, the title could have been better, and then the overall rating for that article or the essay, and then an overall comment on how you could restructure this. Now this is something that they have been doing for a couple of years. Maybe they have had more number of students where they have real data, let's say about 2000 to 3000 students that they have trained, and these articles are with them. And they said, hey, can you guys help us in leveraging AI now, right? I mean, yes, we do have people, but if we want to scale, if we want to onboard more students, then I need more experts, right? And I want to keep the costs low, because this is seasonal business. It's not something that it is gonna be there throughout the year. Now, with this challenges, Atul, one thing is like the regular approach where you design an AI and a model for each and every use case, and you build your own model and you deliver. And then one other thing is, how can I use Gen AI? So this question, if I ask you, how would you suggest this customer, and what would your advice be for this customer on leveraging AI for this use case?
So I think for this for this kind of a use case, the real key here is how the deployment of a solution like this could go hand in hand with their business objectives, like scaling their business, right? So the benefit of using Gen AI and something like what you mentioned, right, for students, the benefit is that you will reach a much wider proportion of the students that are in need of this today, and you could reach it much quicker. So, I mean, in a nutshell, I'm talking about good marketing, right? So, in this case, you have the confidence to market to your limits and actually get a huge footfall on your application or your website or your service, right? And you don't have to, considering you've tested and you have your user experience right, you don't have to worry about, you have to actually worry only about getting more people on, right? You don't have to worry about employing more tutors or more people who could actually guide these students, right? And it's, you can actually do a lot more with the people you already have, rather than go into the cycle of hiring multiple people and training. I mean, not that hiring is bad. It's just that hiring is for most companies, especially at a certain stage of growth, hiring is a lot of efforts go into hiring, right? I think on average, I mean, I've done a couple of hiring drives, and on average, it was like a 1 in 10 or 1 in 15 shot, right? And still, you don't know if the person is the right fit. So this eliminates a lot of that, where you could basically scale. And these are the kind of use cases where I think Gen AI will shine, where you have your process and what you need to do, and you know what to do, right? And you want to make it reach everywhere, and you can use Gen AI to do it. So this is like a very good example of how businesses should be looking at things, where if they get their process right and they know that Gen AI can basically help, and then they use it to scale in the right way. So this is an example of proper usage of scaling, right?
Can we come up with some sort of a framework, let's say sort of questions that we can ask whether Gen AI can be used here, or Gen AI can be used here, and whether it is something that I should build in-house, or should I use something like a prompt engineering service and then integrate as an API? For example, in this particular use case, we can ask the customer how many students are going to come or submit their essays. If it is anything less than 500 for a one particular season, and how many articles and how long these articles are, how many words are there usually in these articles, and how often do they submission, right? I mean, it may be 500 students, but then every student submits 10 articles per that season,
plus that also how many people are actually handling these 500 students, right? Because if it's one person can handle 5, right? And this is one of your pain points today, that my customer facing team, or my in this case student facing team, is not able to take on more, and I'm not able to sell more because of this, right? So basically I'm telling students that, oh no, you can't join next week's batch, we're full. Maybe we'll be closing a batch 1 month later, so maybe 1 month later you can join, right? So think people who in their day-to-day in their business have to say things like this, where okay, we will do it, this is full, we will do it next, like that. So I think that is also an indicator where you need to start using technology and generative AI to ease your operations, right? So that's one. Second is, like you mentioned, the frequency of things, like in this case the upload, or how many students are there, right? I mean, since it's seasonal, and so because if it's something that is seasonal and it's not throughout the year, right, and you are able to extract whatever you need in your basically your company guidelines, so you needed to do ABC, And you can do that by a pre-existing LLM service provider like OpenAI or ChatGPT. Then I don't think someone should go to make their own AI. So if it's basically if it's doing the job that you need it to do, right? Then I don't recommend anyone to start to try to train their own LLM because there's a lot of management that goes on there, right? There's a whole life cycle you have to manage, and you would slowly be putting on more effort there than actually growing the business. So that's. I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
Right. So one thing is, you have this particular customer who wants to build this solution and wants to scale things with Gen AI. It can definitely reduce the burden on the people that they have.
Yes.
They can onboard more students. That means they can widen their service and increase their turnover, and they can invest in a technology where they don't have to build something from scratch. Use something that is available, design a prompt, hire an agency who can put all these things together and achieve that. So you don't have to invest everything on AI.
Yeah.
So one other example or analogy which I really liked that I came across in one of the LinkedIn posts or maybe on YouTube shorts was about Chamath. He's one of an influencer and
an investor.
Yeah. So he spoke about an analogy like, Gen AI today is like an invention like refrigerator was a couple of years back or hundreds of years back, where when refrigerator came, it brought out a service where we can you can cool down things or you can keep preserve things. So it was a new invention, right? Now, but who made more money? It's not the refrigerator guys who made the money, but it was Coke who made more money, or the cold drinks or the ice creams of today which make more money, because at some point of time, refrigeration you can innovate until some level, right? What you can use with this platform. Now a Gen AI can do these things, but the businesses who can leverage Gen AI will be the next Coke.
That is the most spot on analogy that I think that has been said about in the AI space, right? Because this has actually been happening for years. So every technological cycle, it's the people and businesses that leverage these that make money. Even if you see 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when cloud computing came up, right? Fine. All of the Google Cloud and AWS and all of them made a lot of money. But the companies that leveraged it, they made a lot more money and they made a big difference in the world, right? Like a lot of technologies that are there today are because of that. And 10 years later, we will see a lot more technologies here today because of this, right? So, usage and this goes hand in hand, right? Usage drives improvement. So only if people use more, it gets better, right? If people don't use more, it won't get better. And I think people are using more. That's why it's getting a lot better, a lot faster.
Yeah, so Gen AI by itself is not the final innovation. It's just giving you a new platform or a paradigm shift on how to think about solutionizing things, right? So you don't have to build your own model, train your own data, maybe bring in Gen AI, give your existing data to it through a RAG or a training model where you train it and then fine tune the model, and then your model starts predicting much better as how your other experts do. So let's take one more hypothetical example where we are talking about business which is into mobile repairs. Now you have a mobile repair shop or you have multiple centers or multiple shops which are into the mobile repair business. And what you do is that people, you'll have to, these people send delivery people or pick up these mobile phones, and then you will have to tell them what is wrong with your mobile, right? You're giving for service, but you're like, okay, screen is not working, or this is happening, or it's heating up, or the charger is not working, the earphone is not working, or the Wi-Fi is not right. So there are many things that can go on. Now, if you want to build a chatbot into it, yes, you can build, but sometimes you only look at very high level. You will not be able to get into the depth of what the user's problem is. So most of the times when you get into a chatbot, you are kind of stuck saying that, okay, what is the issue you are facing? okay, I'm having issue on this particular thing where the screen is not going beyond, but I want to explain that, but that's not happening. The chatbot says, okay, screen issue, done, right? And then your mobile is picked up, they take the service guy takes a technician, and then he says everything is fine, I don't see a problem. Then he gives you a call back and says, hey, I see that you have put a screen issue, but I don't have a problem. But then you say, no, you do this, then you do this, then this is a reproduction step, and then you can see the issue. Now there's a whole story that you are telling. Now imagine a Gen AI coming into picture, where you explain the problem to Gen AI. It then categorizes and does all that is required to do in your system. Maybe your CRM tries to classify, your Gen AI tries to classify this problem into a screen issue and then gives a detailed step-on-step procedure on how this ticket of this service needs to be handled, right? So when you see these kind of problems, maybe this can be used for anything, like booking of service, booking of issues, maybe car repair, maybe because the guy who collects it is a different guy, the guy who works on it is a different guy, and then guy who delivers may be a different guy, and then your whole experience is spoiled in between explaining the same problem to each of them again and again.
Correct.
Right? So if this kind of solutions can be brought in using Gen AI and a fine-tuned model for each of these use cases can be made, and today we have integrations to WhatsApp and other chat interfaces on your website. Maybe you can build a mobile app which is much more intelligent now to understand and give the details. So these are some of the areas where businesses can use to define a problem. One other use case I can talk about is, let's say we have a marketplace, right? Today we have Fiverr, or maybe have Upwork and things like that, and how you can use Gen AI to generate a problem statement. I have something in my mind, but I'm not able to articulate it better. So use Gen AI, and if you have a plugin which says, on these websites where you have a project idea, but you say some random stuff, Gen AI understands it and then says, hey, this is the title, this is the description, and this is the technology to be used, and yes, this is a timeline that you should probably be expecting, and maybe the cost as well.
Benefit today with the whole ecosystem that we have with Gen AI is that, to make it reach a certain level of performance, you don't need a lot of data, right? And the chatbots, the yesteryear chatbots, right? I remember because I've worked on a lot of them. You need to really get, like, for some of the chatbots that I had implemented, I needed 1,000 examples, 10,000 examples, 15,000 examples, and these were just on one intent. So it would work really well on one thing, but it wouldn't generally work, on other things, right? So
the whole permutation combination will be too many examples. You can't cover everything.
Like I would say that that was trying to teach a 2-year-old how to talk, and this is maybe trying to teach an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old. It's kind of, that's the difference there is, right? So because you need a lot less data, so a lot of like, for example, computer repair or any repair service, they are not traditionally the type of businesses who store a lot of data, right? They are more worried about, finding out the problem and operational improvement, right? And maybe data-driven insight is not something that either occurred to them or something that was required, right, based on the volume. But today, you don't need to take the last 10,000, repairs to understand, right? You may need to take 2 or 3 from each repair type. And just doing that can, train or teach a Gen AI agent how to talk to the customer, right? Because this is trained on pre-existing data. So it's a pre-trained transformer, which is what, a generative pre-trained, which is what GPT is, right? And it basically knows how to talk. You just have to give it the right information to point it in the right way, right? So now I think there's a wider range of businesses that can actually use it. Before, if you go and if you tell a smaller company that maybe does not do, millions or crores in revenue, that, okay, we'll put an AI model, data science, this, that, they may say that, okay, right now I have few people doing it and they're doing it fine. Then you can't basically show them value without going through a whole system where okay, you figure out the data pipeline, then you train a model, then you integrate. Like the whole process is so long, right? But today that's cut short by a lot because a your Gen AI model needs a lot less data to do well. B, with all of the integrations available today, they can do it in weeks, maybe sometimes even days, right?
So I remembered one more example when you specifically mentioned about the service ticket creation, right? So we have an internal tool where we are using Power Apps, where we are using this. It's called the IT support portal, right? So the tech support portal, where a lot of people sometimes, our employees, there is a lot of requests, and I usually the ratio of somebody who's in the tech support team to somebody responding to the developers is very vast difference. So you may not be able to address each and every query immediately, right? So what we thought is like, okay, we had this preview of OpenAI, Azure OpenAI, right, which is the Microsoft partnered stuff, and we built a fine-tuned model where we had prompted in saying that, okay, now you are going to handle the first initial response of whatever people are asking. So you can be a chat agent, and then if somebody says that, hey, I have this particular issue, my laptop is not restarting, or I mean, my laptop is heating, and then it gives you 5 immediate steps that you can do before the person responsible on the IT support comes to you. So the 5 immediate things that you can do, what the agent looks into, and then if it is not, what it will do is on your behalf, it will understand what is the problem and then create a ticket automatically.
Yeah.
So it is a use of Power Automate and Power Apps and things like that. So, but it shortens the thing because you already explained the problem to this chatbot, and then it suggests you 5 steps or 5 possible solutions, and then you said, no, that's not working, this is a problem. Then you don't have to go back again and create a ticket in the portal. You just said, okay, can I create a ticket on this problem? You say yes, it does that for you. So it saves time, and a lot of times to and fro communication is avoided. So imagine the productivity that we can get in. So if you can solve at least 20 to 30% queries through this, it is significant amount of time that is saved.
Yes, and actually significant amount of time, and I think these are, I mean, there are a lot of, like I mentioned before also, there are a lot of these small things that you do at your workplace that goes unnoticed as, the time spent on it. And these things eventually do add up, right? And it could actually give you a lot more clarity on focusing on the main task at hand than, waiting for someone to reply to a ticket, or then okay, you have to write this big email, how should I word it? And now you can control tone also, right? So how do I make sure that I don't want to sound too rude, I want to make a point, but it has to not sound like
very assertive tone.
Yeah, like all these stinker emails that people send, right? Now it's going to be like polished upper class stinker emails where they're going to be using a lot of heavier vocab, right? So
and believe me, this solution that we developed, it didn't take too much time. It was just about 2 weeks we had this up and running.
Yeah.
So you don't have to invest too much of time. So people, when they think, oh, Gen AI, I need to train my data, or the whole ML and all that, these are smart models, right? The LLMs, generic models, and then you fine tune them. But using them, if you know how to use them, or there's a possibility to use it in your business, and what are the areas that you can improvise the process. Or the easiest thing is, let's say there is a disconnect. There's a workflow, you see there's a disconnect, and then if you want to join that disconnect using an AI. So that is where you can start.
Which is where we were talking about meetings, right? The whole, bigger the corporation, half the time is spent in meetings, right? And your meeting today, today you do have like note takers joining in the meeting and summarizing meetings also.
Right.
But my question is, if you implement it in the right place, you may not even need that meeting, right? So there are, in different organizations, meetings happen because of different reasons. One could be to keep the right people informed, or to make sure that A and B person are on the same page. This is the biggest reasons, right? So this is like classic example of how Gen AI can solve it. Right? And now with generative capabilities and multimodal capabilities, it's not just text because right, there are some people understand better with text, some people understand better with diagrams, some people understand better with audio, I guess, right? So you could create a really multimodal summary of what needs to be done, and that could be shared, right? So, I mean, this would save a lot of times in meetings, right? Yeah, I'm not going for Zoom or any other meeting company's revenue, but I think unnecessary meetings could be avoided a lot.
I think on the topics today, we spoke about what are the primary areas that or businesses that probably are suitable for AI or they're looking at AI. What are the steps or in the process of decision making that they should talk about, or how much of the data readiness that they need today to get started with AI. So I think we spoke multiple use cases on that. Organizations' readiness to adopt to AI and what should be their thing. So interestingly, there is an article I would like to share. This article, and maybe if I can share my screen.
Yeah.
So in fact, there are two articles that I would like to share. So one is it talks about enterprises hesitate on Gen AI adoption amid pricing model shifts and high costs, because there's a proper pricing guideline, right, saying that okay, this is your usage, then this is going to be the cost. So there's a lot of unpredictability for a lot of
Right.
Businesses. Let's say, what should I budget for my AI thing, right? I mean, yes, we want to do AI, and there's a pay-as-you-go model. So sometimes you see that use case, but if it scales, what could be my budgets? How should I put a boundary? So I think these are some of the areas where I think the companies are looking at, where how enterprises can, they're hesitant to look at
I
the
think
Gen AI adoption.
putting it in a nutshell, if it can save time, right, it can generate more revenue, like for example better recommendations or nudging the user to do something more that could end up in a revenue generating action, right? And if it could basically preserve your image, right? So if these three things your use case with Gen AI does, then I think the pricing should sort of manage itself. And considering you are also looking to scale, right? So if these three things, along with that growth pattern or growth outlook is there, I mean, I think it is worth the cost. One more thing that when it comes to cost, right? So cost will change in the future, right? And you identifying a use case, then it may be too late. Not too late as it would take a lot of time to implement. Too late as in you may lose that competitive edge in your industry, right? So there is a school of thought that says, okay, fine, you may be bleeding money now. So Gen AI costs are reducing for better performance. So a simple example is ChatGPT 4 versus ChatGPT 4.0, right? So 4.0 is twice as
Right.
fast and half the price,
Half as the
right?
cost.
And much better speed, right? So they are also looking to optimize and try to give out Gen AI capabilities at a lower cost, right? Current costs are of course high, everybody knows that, but it's high because of the getting GPUs and all of these processors to actually train the data. Those are really expensive. Like one piece is like 40,000-50,000 US dollars, right? But like we've seen in the past, right? Like 20-30 years ago, when you had your pen drive or Walkman or whatever you're listening music on, it was like in MBs, right? 1 GB itself was a big thing. Right now, everything is in TBs or late GBs.
I remembered one more analogy which I saw in LinkedIn, which says, when people are digging gold, you should sell shovels.
Yes, yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So Nvidia is making more money by selling GPUs than actually doing something on the Gen AI part, right? I mean,
Yeah, because that's what everyone needs today, right? To make things cheaper. Like I'm sure what they're looking at today is to make sure the compute becomes cheaper. And once the compute
yeah,
becomes cheaper, because I don't think the bottleneck today is data availability, considering that it's the amount of data generated every second nowadays is still a lot. The real bottleneck
yeah.
is compute and the cost of compute, and without doubt in few years we will see that drop down a lot. If it's already halved in few months, I'm thinking it would go half again by next year, right? I mean, if you continue that pattern, right? And along
Makes
with
it more
yeah
affordable for all small
yeah
businesses to try
yeah
that
along
out
with
and
it becoming
go
half
with the pay as you
yeah
go
along
model.
with it becoming half, it's able to do more also, right? So it's not just half,
Right.
right? With half you can do a lot more also. So yeah, so people will hesitate today, but in my opinion it could be an investment for the future, because somebody who gets their use case right the first time and is already using it, they will anyways only benefit in the future because it is going to become cheaper, right? That's one. Somebody who doesn't use it and later on, see, it's not just Gen that's going to become cheaper. There's going to be a lot more. Like when you do it later, you will be in more need of it. So you will be willing to put,
Right.
more on the line, more at stake to do it. So this is one of those things that it's better to start early, right? You can get the compounding effect of the growth. It's like
Right. So
what
it's
these
not
finance
like you
influencers
wait and
say
watch
about
things. You don't wait and watch for things, but see around, see, put a small budget, try out what is
yeah,
there and how we can improvise the
yeah,
process using AI
yeah.
and reap its benefit over a period of time.
Yeah, companies always have a budget for exploring something to change
Innovation.
innovation. Innovation budget is always there, right? So I think this is like almost a no-brainer that it should be Gen AI, right? Today.
I have one more article which is completely contrary to the previous one, which is a month old, and then it says how Gen AI is FOMO is driving tech heavyweights to invest billions of dollars in startups. So I think we started our article talking about how boardrooms and how CEOs are pressurized to what are you doing on AI? What is our strategy of how do we leverage Gen AI? And this article really points to that point, right? You know how companies are looking on
So I mean,
investing
this goes back to that whole
on
analogy of startups being lightweight and being able to adapt quickly, right? And move and switch directions fast, whereas bigger heavyweights, of course, they have a whole process, they need to set up a team and all of that, right? This happens often every time there's like a technological cliff or edge that we cross, right? Startups will move much faster because of smaller teams move faster, but bigger teams of course have a lot more at stake, right? So they need to
right.
watch their steps a bit more, I would say, because I mean bigger companies, I mean they're listed companies, there are a lot more public shareholders, there's it's a different, it's not just about one team or one function wanting to do something. And startups, I would say, why they want to invest in startups today is to again reap the benefits in the future, because with Gen AI there are more sections of today's world that you can actually sort of add tech to. Like you can technologically transform different part of people's lives, right? And startups can do that, really hyper focused, pinpoint a certain problem and solve it, right? Versus like a big giant like Google or Microsoft, right? They have too many things on their plate. Of course they have big teams managing it, but startups are more like pinpoint precision that can improve fast, right?
And focused
Focused, yeah.
solutions can be
Yeah, it's very
developed.
hard for bigger companies to develop focused solutions. That's why I think they really want to invest in the right side of the right time instead of buying them 10 years later at 10x valuation, right? Or 20x valuation.
I think it was a very interesting discussion to start and end on a similar note, where the importance of AI and how businesses can leverage AI and use the innovation and ride the curve of AI. Any closing comments, Atul, and what on this discussion
So
today?
there is a
What are some
closing
key
comment that
takeaways?
I really want to highlight, and it's not on the. I mean, it's. I mean, we've been talking about all of the nice things, right? I wanna be
Devil's
that devil's
advocate,
advocate. And, oh, you should make sure you do this right, do that right. That what
right?
the common pitfalls that people while using AI today, that even regardless of how big, small a company you are, right, is about data ownership and giving the right recognition to who's and getting your rights in order, right? I think everyone knows about the whole voice assistant used in GPT-4o. It was actually Scarlett Johansson's. She refused, but it ended up sounding like her anyways, and now she's going to court for it, right? So, I mean, there have been a lot of instances where, using somebody's data for something else. Like today, you can use somebody else's voice. You can use a popular singer's voice. You can write your own lyrics, and you could just post it, right? And that's a new song. And if that clicks, you make money, but the artist doesn't, right? So we're going to that phase where ownership of your identity, right, is getting a little complex. So, of course, businesses need to know that, even if they do use, open source platforms like this, or if they want to basically innovate using a new use case, they need to make sure that, the legal repercussions of it is also looked at. So if they are using, for example, if like an education app, right? If they're using somebody's voice and they want to use an iconic voice, they need to make sure that they get rights, or they have to pay royalty. I mean, all of that, or they use a completely AI generated voice, right? So they need to think of that a lot more also, and because it's very easy to actually reach while implementing this. If you don't have the right guidance with the right experts and consultants, it's very easy to reach like a spot, and then now you don't know what you do because you've already done it, and it's already live. If I undo it also, I still may not be able to fix it, right? So I mean, there are places you can get stuck because it's complicated how it works, right? And how it works is everybody also does not know. The predictability is less. So yeah, these are the few things that I think businesses should look at before why not before implementing, while implementing. These are a while implementing type things that they should look out for, and be open enough to accept that this is something that will help me and help the business and help people working in the workspace, rather than looking at it as, oh my god, now I'm going to lose my job. Oh, I'm gonna, now I don't have to do anything, or I don't have to work. No, it's about changing your outlook to a data driven or AI assisted approach to, make things better for everyone. So that's my closing remark.
And on that note, we would like to end this session. Very insightful and exciting session today. Thanks, Atul. Thanks for your time. Really appreciate for all the information, and I hope all our viewers would have few takeaways from this insightful discussion. And to all the viewers, please comment, subscribe, and give us your feedback of what were the takeaways that you had from this conversation that we had, and also write what more would you guys like to know about AI and the implementation, because we have a lot of lined up discussion topics that we feel that we would like to share with you. Thank you once again, and stay tuned for more content and subscribe to the channel.